The opening scene occurs in a building in the middle of a swamp. It's a place where they are mass-producing a certain illegal substance, the one featured in the show Breaking Bad. Seconds later, an armed DEA strike team raids the compound, initiating a firefight between them and the criminals. During the chaos, one of the workers spills a large container of chemicals on the ground in an attempt to get rid of the evidence. The chemicals then flow into the nearby river, and the alligators there absorb the chemicals, turning them berserk. Thus, the plot of the movie is established. The next scene introduces us to our main character, a biology student named Kyle. There is foreshadowing in this scene since the discussion is about apex predators, and the one on the projection is an alligator. After the class, Kyle meets up with her good friend Alice. They're preparing for a trip that involves scattering Jamie's ashes in a certain place. He's Kyle's deceased older brother. However, as soon as she sees who is accompanying them, she is unable to hide her disappointment. Malika and Sam are going to drive them to their destination, and they're not Kyle's favorite people. Later, you'll clearly understand why this is the case. Anyway, the group arrives at their hotel and has some fun in the pool. While Malika is getting some drinks, Alice tries to convince Kyle that it's time for her to move on from her brother's passing. However, this comment triggers Kyle, and she walks away, declaring how people should stop telling her how to be. Outside, Kyle watches a video she took of her brother, which makes her cry. There is a brief flashback of Jamie telling her to live life and trying out riding his motorcycle. This brief moment emphasizes the endearing bond they once had. The next morning, Malika wakes everyone up with a megaphone, and they resume their road trip. At the gas station, Kyle spots some newspapers with headlines talking about recent gator attacks. Then she hears eerie laughter nearby. When she checks it out, she notices a strange old man talking about a big gator with a scar on its face, another foreshadowing. The group soon arrives at a private airport, something that surprises Kyle. Turns out Malika intended for them to take a private plane to their destination, not caring about Kyle's fear of flying. When they meet the pilot, Frank, who is obviously inebriated, they start to realize how bad of an idea this actually is. To make things worse, Frank does not respect the smoking rules. You can already tell this flight isn't going to end well. The group almost ditches the flight, but out of pettiness, Kyle insists that they should continue with the flight anyway since they are already there. Frank gives everyone a quick briefing on the route they will take and welcomes them inside the plane. During the flight, a businessman named Rufus takes a call, so naturally the other passengers tell him to turn off his phone, but he doesn't give a flying fork. Since he won't listen, another man tries to confront him, but this is when things take a turn for the worse. The plane starts malfunctioning, and its engine starts failing. This results in Frank having to perform an emergency landing, and you can guess where the group lands. Yes, it's the same swamp from the beginning of the movie. The plane crash lands right in the middle of the river, and everyone painfully makes their way back to dry land. One passenger in particular, Zoe, is gravely injured on her right hand, while another one, Maud, has lost her husband. The co-pilot, Ray, is also missing. Instead of sulking like everyone else, Kyle takes action, going to Zoe and helping Frank perform first aid on the woman. She takes Sam's belt and creates a tourniquet around Zoe's arm, stopping her from bleeding out. Frank shouts Ray's name several times, hoping he'd surface, but there is no response. Alice talks about staying put and waiting for rescuers, but that's not going to happen anytime soon, because Frank flew uncharted. No one knows they were flying. Hence, no one knows they crash-landed in the middle of the biggest wetlands in the country. After a lengthy discussion, the group decides to start walking north. They have no choice but to move or risk meeting their ends. While everyone is gathering their belongings, Alice separates from the group and spots a nest filled with alligator eggs. Back in the group, while assessing all the items they collected, Zoe spots a man in the river. It's Ray. Naturally, Frank, Sam, and Kyle rush to save him. However, before they can get close, an alligator emerges from the water and devours Ray. After getting out of the water, Kyle urges the group to start their long walk as soon as possible. A brief shot shows the alligator nest from before, only having one egg left. This implies that Alice took the rest of the eggs for herself. At night, the group is forced to stop because Maud is too tired to walk. Malika makes an unnecessary comment about the woman's weight. When Kyle talks about how they're in a good spot to camp for the night, Malika also makes a comment about how Kyle is suddenly Steve Irwin. Fortunately, the group defends Kyle, acknowledging that she's the most qualified to lead the group, and so they set camp for the night. At night, Rufus sneaks off to take a piss and his phone rings. Unfortunately, it falls to the ground, and as soon as he tries to pick it up to answer the call, an alligator appears out of nowhere and crushes his head between its jaws. The next morning, the group finds Rufus's body. Kyle points out that it's strange that alligators are attacking people. Frank then informs the group about the rumors that alligators are being more aggressive than usual, going out of their way to eliminate people. One of the largest gators with a scar on its face even has a name, Christina. During this conversation, the group spots a distant cabin. They agree that it's the best place to head to because it will give them a good vantage point. On their way there, the group is halted by the presence of a few gators that are hiding behind vegetation, waiting for the moment to strike. The group barely has time to come up with a strategy, because as soon as they start whispering amongst themselves, one gator quickly drags Maud away. This causes the rest of the group to start running as fast as they can to the cabin. One of the giant reptiles bites and injures Zoe's leg just as she's about to enter the cabin. Then, the group struggles to close the door as the alligator continues ramming its head against it. If this isn't bad enough, while everyone is trying to hold the door closed, Malika is off to another side, kicking a wall for whatever reason. Eventually, the predators leave. That night, while sleeping, Kyle experiences a nightmare that shows what exactly happened to her brother. Turns out Jamie attempted to stop a gas station robbery, but ended up getting shot by the perpetrators. The next day, Sam shows Kyle a map he found inside the cabin. The map shows a building that is 4 miles from their location, but they have to cross a river to get there. Malika protests, suggesting that they should stay in the cabin because it's safer. Kyle counters, pointing out that they have no food and no means of communicating with rescuers. Furthermore, Zoe needs proper medical attention as soon as possible. Malika, being the bitch she is, brings up personal matters. She starts insulting Kyle and blaming her for Jamie's passing. She even tries to take the man's ashes away from Kyle. Frank reminds everyone to bring personal matters out of the situation. He then initiates a vote, and the majority of the group is in favor of taking a risk and going outside. After a quick briefing from Kyle on how to handle an encounter with a gator, everyone heads out. During the journey, Zoe almost collapses due to fatigue, but her boyfriend Dom motivates her, urging her to stay strong. Malika, on the other hand, makes unnecessary comments against, suggesting leaving the woman behind. She might be a worse enemy than the alligators. Once they reach the river, Kyle comes up with a plan. She suggests building a raft so they can use the flow of the river to get to their destination faster. It's a crazy idea, but since the alligators are cooling down due to the humid weather, they have enough time until they resurface. But they have to work fast. Despite objections from Malika, the rest of the group supports the idea and gets to work. While the men are carrying logs, Alice senses something nearby hiding and waiting. She carefully approaches the area where it is. Stick in hand, she is now face to face with an alligator. With one swift motion, she attempts to stab the beast. Surprisingly, Alice survives the encounter and reunites with the group just as they finish building the raft. As everyone gets on the raft, Sam rushes back to the shore to retrieve the bag containing Jamie's ashes. This is also when 2 alligators show up and start heading towards the group. While everyone is worried about the gators catching up to them, Zoe is zoned out, deep in thought. She looks at Dom endearingly, uttering the words, "I love you," as if it's the last time she'll say it, because it is. Soon after, she gets off the raft, plunging herself into the river. Zoe sacrifices herself, creating a diversion that allows the others to paddle ahead of the alligators. Dom is left in shock, unable to immediately grasp the finality of her action. For the rest of the ride, no one utters a single word until they reach their destination. It's the same building from the start of the movie, but this time it's been abandoned by humans at least. Frank sees the bullets scattered on the floor and currently guesses what might have occurred in the location. He warns everyone to move slowly and stay quiet because there might still be people inside. Malika doesn't care though. She even shouts inside to see if anyone would respond. What she doesn't know is that she woke up a few alligators sleeping inside. As the group explores deeper into the facility, they see blood everywhere, leaving them wondering if something else happened aside from a raid. Frank eventually suggests that the group should split up to cover more ground. However, he suspiciously puts Malika in his group along with Alice. Later, Frank splits his group further, sending Alice to explore another area on her own, so he can be alone with Malika. Meanwhile, Dom, Kyle, and Sam discover the chemicals inside the building. Kyle puts 2 and 2 together, correctly guessing that the alligators must have ingested the substances, which explains their aggressive behavior. They also spot one of the laborers who is injured. Back to Frank, he finally snaps at Malika, telling her that he knows people like her from back when he was deployed in the war. He declares hatred for people like her who will not hesitate to betray and step on people. Immediately after this, Frank throws Malika off the railings, but she still manages to cling to a steel bar. Malika tries to apologize to Frank, promising to rethink her actions moving forward. Of course, she's only saying this because her life is in danger. Meanwhile, on the other side of the factory, Kyle tries to talk to the injured laborer, but it's too late. He kicks the bucket. Alice then stumbles into them, which makes Kyle wonder where Malika and Frank are. Speaking of the two, while Frank is waiting for Malika to loosen her grip, he suddenly has a moment of realization, questioning what he just did. All the while, a giant alligator is already above him, poised for an attack. Within seconds, the gator bites Frank and snatches his entire body, dragging him to God knows where. Just before Malika loses her grip, Kyle and the others come to her rescue, pulling her back to safety. Still in shock and through tears, Malika apologizes to Kyle for the nasty things she said, admitting that she also misses Jamie. Perhaps, moving forward, she will finally stop running her mouth. As the group moves to another area in the factory, they suddenly find the door shuts, sealing their way back. They have no choice but to keep moving forward. When Dom switches on the lights, the group comes face to face with a horrific reality in front of them. In order to move forward, they have to sneak past several sleeping alligators. Kyle sees a door on the other side and whispers to the group that they have to move as quietly as possible. She's the first to attempt this, making sure to lead by example. Kyle successfully tiptoes and gets past the alligators. Dom follows suit, and he also successfully sneaks past the gators. Kyle immediately gets to work, testing out if the radio in the room is working, hoping she can finally contact someone and ask for help. But Sam is still attempting to sneak past the apex predators. In classic horror movie fashion, he trips on a twig, causing him to fall to his knee and make a loud thud. The biggest gator in that room awakens and bites Sam's head right off his body with ease. And of course, the communication device starts working just after his demise. Screaming and panicking, Kyle manages to call for help, despite not being able to say their exact location. The responder on the other line promises to save them before the comms gets cut off. As the power goes out, Kyle grabs any weapon she can in that room before they head to another unfamiliar room. This is where they come face to face with the largest gator in the swamp, the one with a scar on its face, Christina. Alice stupidly approaches the reptile and brings out the egg she stole, as if this is going to magically tame the predator. Meanwhile, Kyle points a gun at the gator, waiting for an opening to shoot. To no one's surprise, this stunt goes horribly wrong. Christina chomps down on Alice's arm that was offering the egg. Panicked, Kyle drops the gun instead of shooting. Only when Alice gets slammed to the side does Kyle finally find an opening to shoot. This girl closes her damn eyes instead of taking proper aim and still manages to hit the alligator. The power of plot armor, I guess. Malika and Dom rush to Alice's aid while the beast is distracted, and Kyle continues firing shots but misses like a stormtrooper. The three others manage to get to the door and escape, while Kyle remains in the room with Christina. As the gator charges at her, she slides forward, grabs the machete on the ground, and uses it to stab the gator's eye. Still, Christina, being an absolute unit, shrugs off Kyle, flinging her near the exit. Kyle stands back up, spills a container full of flammable chemicals on the floor, and sets everything on fire, literally cooking the alligator alive. As Christina burns, the other three make their way back inside to witness the spectacle. The main characters stand still, aura farming above Christina and her fiery end. Outside, rescue finally arrives in the form of a helicopter. Sometime later, Kyle finally scatters her brother's ashes, and she finally gets comfortable riding a motorcycle. This would have been a great final scene, but the real final scene of the movie takes place back in the abandoned factory. Frank is still alive for some reason, and he starts laughing maniacally, leaving the audience wondering if everything that happened was according to his plan.